2000년을 넘어 2010년대 접어서며 전 세계는 한국을 주목하기 시작했습니다. 그리고 한 미국 다큐멘터리 전문 방송은 한국을 주제로 다큐를 제작했습니다. 그런데 10여 년이 지난 현재 해당 다큐에 나오는 전문가들의 이야기가 현재 한국을 예언 수준으로 예측했다는 평가가 나오며 이 다큐멘터리가 다시 주목받기 시작했는데요. 현재 외국인들이 보는 한국은 K-팝의 나라, 한류, 헐리우드보다 상위의 영화 제작국가, 소프트 파워의 강국이라며 다양한 표현을 합니다. 그런데 이들은 공통적으로 한국이란 나라가 갑자기 나타났다고 표현하곤 하죠. 하지만 전문가들의 의견은 달랐습니다. 2011년 당시 해외 전문가들은 한국을 어떻게 바라보고 분석했을까요? 현재 2024년을 살아가는 한국인으로서 그들의 예측이 정확했는지 해당 영상 함께 보시죠.
Sitting at the end of a peninsula, South Korea is the size of Kentucky, with Japan to its east and China above North Korea. In less than 6 decades, South Korea has risen like a phoenix from the ashes to become an economic powerhouse with ambitions to match. On the international stage, it's hosted an Olympic Games, co-hosted the World Cup, and in 2010, it became the first Asian nation to host a G20 summit.
It's a country that was raised by war, and that's total destruction of the war has given it a lot of the impetus for building from scratch. So when we look at many of the industries, people were willing to take very bold decisions, but essentially they had nothing to lose.
It started out in 1938 as Samsung General Store, which was a trading company which sold dried fish and other foodstuffs.
Our history starts from 1947. We started out as a small manufacturer of cosmetic facial creams for women, and then we ventured into other industries such as plastic materials, healthcare products, household goods, electronics.
After the devastation of the Korean War in the 1950s, Samsung began to move into new business areas to help rebuild the Korean economy. Some of those included, for example, textiles and sugar refineries. Now, by the late 1960s, Samsung began to move into the electronics industry.
Hyundai is another of Korea's top chaebols. Its founder, Chung Ju-young, was born into a peasant family. He typifies the post-war breed of South Korean entrepreneurs.
He went on a whirlwind tour of Europe. He first of all secured a set of orders from the Greeks that if he were able to build a shipbuilding industry, then they would buy ships from him. Predicated on that, he then travelled to London, where he met a first of all rather sceptical Barclays Bank and told them that the Koreans would build ships. And something about the charisma of the man persuaded Barclays that they should fund his project. And from nowhere he went back down to the small fishing town of Ulsan, built dockyards, started building ships, and before long, the Koreans were the biggest shipbuilders in the world.
By 2009, South Korea was the world's 9th largest exporter. In display panels, memory chips, and shipbuilding, they ranked number 1. In mobile phones, 2nd. Cars, 5th. Petrochemicals, steel and textiles were all in the top 10. But there are new global markets in South Korea's sights, the so-called soft power service industries. These are not factory but city-based, and they need highly educated individuals to create new wealth. Can South Korea Inc. become a world beater here as well?
One of the great challenges for South Korea right now is that it is bottom of all league tables when it comes to Asian tourism. Tourists don't want to go to South Korea. They want to transfer to the airport. They want to use its airlines. They don't necessarily want to get off the plane.
We've invested a lot of time, energy, and money. The result is Incheon International Airport, Seoul's International Airport, has been voted the world's #1 airport for 6 years in a row.
South Korea is not yet in the ranks of Asia's top destinations, but it has plans to tempt the world's traveling consumers.
In a very short span of time, our bathroom cupboards or women's cosmetics bags are going to be full of Korean brands that are already billion-dollar companies in their own right. They just haven't gone beyond the borders of that nation yet, but they're on their way.
Millions of tourists do come, and thousands of people who work for multinational companies do stay. Seoul offers both luxury shopping and its own fast food. Bindaetuk could be Korea's contribution to the menu of international foods found across the globe, like hamburgers and pizza. While Seoul is making itself more beautiful, underneath, the city's heartbeat is digital. It's the most wired city anywhere and has world-beating creativity coursing through its veins. Korean pop, K-pop, has taken Asia by storm, and now its stars are becoming big in the West. The Hallyu, the Korean wave, is a cultural phenomenon, and in the global soft power stakes, it's been called the country's biggest weapon.
When you look at raw soft power, those assets that can't be bought but are instantly loved and embraced by people around the world, the Koreans have understood how to export those things in spades.
The K-pop has definitely become a bigger influence than it was like 5 or 10 years ago. So it's exciting for music to be such a big part of culture here. Thanks to the internet, you know, not just Asia, but all around the world. So it's been globalized, and I think a lot of the fans are around the world are enjoying the Korean music because it's easier to reach to, and it's entertaining.
I think if you look at the current creative boom that's coming out of South Korea, it's benefited from two things. One is the enormous Korean diaspora around the world, and that's Koreans in Australia, the US, Canada, United Kingdom. I think the other side, though, is education, just the sheer number of Koreans who go abroad to study. And what that brings them is a number of things. It's just exposure to different markets. It delivers an understanding of how other people think, what makes other consumers tick.
Per capita, there are more South Koreans studying in America than from any other country. In the 60s, during South Korea's political unrest, hundreds of thousands had emigrated to the US, but now many Korean Americans want to come back.
Many of them settled in the US, and we now even have hundreds of thousands of young people in their 20s and 30s in the US who are very Americanized, somewhat global, who want to come back home. And many try, but they find that the market here is extremely competitive because the Korean youngsters have in the meantime become far more globalized than their Korean American cousins who are insular, relatively speaking, who grew up in the US. This is a very interesting development.
Once upon a time, Samsung, they fought purely on price. Now they fight on design and service.
It is our technology that made your life smart.
We're now approaching what I sort of see as the third Korean wave. If the first Korean wave was LG, Samsung arriving in our households, more Hyundai vehicles and Kia showing up on the street, if the second wave was the K-pop boom, the soap opera boom, let's say the whole soft power boom that we've seen from South Korea, the third wave is going to be an industrial and brand one. And what we're about to witness are Korean brands hitting every other part of our daily life.
After 60 years of near relentless growth, does South Korea feel it has achieved its goal? And is there more to come?
On the whole, I think South Koreans today, in 2011, feel relatively comfortable economically. There isn't a great deal of discontent in their lives. They worry about North-South Korean relations. They worry about the environment. They worry about the scarcity of resources. They worry about their children. But these are the worries of a relatively affluent, relatively comfortable economy anywhere on this planet. The only distinction, I think, is that the Koreans may be still a bit more hungry than the wealthier European countries or North American countries.
Now is an interesting time to be Korean and see how well South Korea can fulfill its promise of great things to come. Everything points to a vibrant country that has married the best of both Western and Asian culture in a free market economy, and it could well make South Korea the nation to watch.
지금까지 꿀튜브였습니다. 오늘 영상이 도움되셨다면 구독과 좋아요 부탁드리고요. 앞으로도 꿀튜브 채널에 많은 관심 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.